So I just finished Killers of the Flower Moon, and here are my first impressions. Leo's character was a complete asshole. I didn't expect this going in. What I kind of expected going in, and I tried to sort of stay blind to it. You know, it was hard to sort of block out the din of reactions from all sides of this. Just from watching the trailer, I was expecting, you know, Leo's character to be kind of a guy who got in over his head and didn't quite realize his uncle's full plan and thought that he could just kind of minimally get away with things, baby steps into doing more and more horrible things until he got to a moment, kind of like the first thing I could think of, it would be like Tony Montana in Scarface, where he even gets to a point where he's like gonna blow up the politician, but then his kids get in the car and he goes, no fucking kids.
Two little kids in a car. This is so fucking bad.
You know, like that was his breaking point. I was expecting Leo to get to a breaking point and be kind of a nice guy and kind of slowly immerse himself in the Osage culture and a little bit of a gradual Dances with Wolves kind of a thing. But no, he was kind of a shithead from the start.
Were these women dying with how Osage suffered from illness? You have to make it the head rights come to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's almost nothing redeeming about him. And if you compare him to, let's say, like other Scorsese protagonists, Henry Hill, you know, he's most like Henry Hill, where he's really only looking out for himself.
Can you see him in the courtroom today?
Yes, sir.
Could you please point him out to the members of the jury?
It's right there.
That the record reflects that the witness has identified the defendant, William Hale.
It's probably the worst, like the most despicable character I think Leo's ever played. And I'm including, what's his name, Candy from Django Unchained. As awful as Candy was, and as despicable as he was, there is something about being a coward and an opportunistic criminal that is just, that leaves such more of a bad taste in my mouth. Because at every opportunity, Ernest Burkhart is looking out for himself and trying to end up on the right side of whatever's going on. Especially in the end, where he's going back and forth on whether or not to testify. Like,
You tell me what I gotta do.
Brendan Fraser and everybody talks into his ear, and he's like, no, they beat you, and they forced this confession out of you. And then he goes back to testifying. Like, it's all in an effort to end up with the best outcome for himself. And I'm torn on whether or not I liked it, I guess. No, I definitely liked it. I definitely liked this movie. It has had this great, epic story. It's also a story I wasn't familiar with. You know, I didn't know that there was a specific group of Native Americans that came into this wealth and then had it methodically stripped from them in the worst way possible. And really the more interesting parts were about their culture, the Osage people adjusting to this white culture as they became part of Osage County with all these white people, and how, you know, just that opening scene, the funeral, it's essentially like a memorial service for what they used to be, and then we have to pick up the white man's ways and move forward. It really did seem like, on paper, it seemed like a nice little pocket of understanding between two cultures, but, you know, everything goes south. Lily Gladstone. I'm like, every time I watch her on screen, I'm like falling in love with her. I helped do a video about her for IMDb, and I really enjoyed watching her stuff. Sometimes I'll do a video for IMDb, like a little No Small Parts video, and I watch someone's material and I'm like, it's pretty good, you know, but you know, I don't really get too invested in them. But Lily Gladstone, I got really invested in because there's a little kind of a short documentary I found of her on YouTube talking about how, you know, she gets talking about her process and how she utilizes these breathing techniques to really get into her character.
Your brain knows you're acting. Your brain knows it's not real. Your body doesn't. It brings you home. Because sometimes when you're playing these characters, you can get pretty far out there.
She's also, what's cool about Lily Gladstone is that she is finding success at kind of an older age than usual. She's in her 30s, I believe, her mid-30s. And when she's interviewed, there's no ego. There's nothing like, there's also no eagerness. As, you know, when you're like a young, eager actor and you get a big break or something, or there could be, even if you haven't gotten a big break, there could be this bitterness. Every time she's interviewed, I really like her. I just like her vibe, man. She's gotten to a point where she was just in the past few years, I want to say, she said that she had gotten to a point where she was making a living off of acting, and she had this big break with, it wasn't a huge successful film by any means, but it was beautiful. It was called, oh man, what was it called? I'm just on her IMDb here. Lily Gladstone, Certain Women. So she did this movie. It's kind of a good example of the roles that she has done and what she excels at. She excels at these kind of quiet, patient, natural performances. In Certain Women, she plays like this lonely ranch hand who starts going to an adult education class taught by Kristen Stewart, and it's kind of implied, you're not really sure, but I think it's heavily implied that she becomes infatuated with Kristen Stewart, wants to have a relationship with her, at the very least have a friend, but I think she becomes romantically interested in her. And it's just this really understated, beautiful story of longing and loneliness.
I don't mean to keep you from getting to work or anything. I just knew if I didn't start driving, I wasn't going to see you again. I didn't want that.
Lily's so good at that kind of stuff, and also just being able to communicate things with very little dialogue. And then, man, if that isn't perfect for Killers of the Flower Moon, I don't like, so well cast. Molly Burkhart she's just the heart of this movie. She just trusts it's like she has pure love for him. She trusts him. She devotes herself to him. She thinks she understands where he's coming from, where he admits, yeah, I'd love to get married to you for the money. Hey, I like money.
Cody wants money.
Well, that money's real nice. It's real nice. Especially if you're lazy like me.
But she thinks that, yeah, he likes money, but he just really wants to settle down. And I think she saw this kind of sadness in him from her perspective, and she fell in love with that in a way. And when really he's just like a moron. I really expected his character to excel and become less of a moron and become more involved in the Osage culture and respect it, and totally caught me by surprise. Especially, they kind of set it up in a way, at least they made me think that he was going to be less of a shithead. When Robert De Niro was like, "Oh, go read that book over there. You get that book off the shelf." That's not how he talks.
Get that book on Osage, Byron.
This one?
Yeah, that one.
Go over there, get that book off your shelf. Yeah, Robert De Niro talks like an Adam Sandler character. It's a great performance, but in the end, the full picture of this character, of Ernest Burkhart, is that of a witless, opportunistic, selfish, dim, half-wit criminal who is almost hasn't thought through the next day. That's the only thing that made watching this movie a little more difficult, because I'm not at a certain point I'm not latching on to his character anymore. I'm like, all right, I'm done with you. I'm latching on to Molly, because she's the real heart of it. And another character, another Martin Scorsese character that kind of does what he's told is what's his name from The Irishman? Yeah, Frank Sheeran. Frank Sheeran, at least the way he's portrayed in The Irishman, is just a guy who does what he's told, and he does everything you're supposed to do. He did everything right as a criminal and got away with it. And then the interesting part, I mean, I love The Irishman. The best part about The Irishman to me is just this man contending with his soul, you know, in this old age home. And he did everything right, and he got out the other side, and then what are you left with? Your friends are all dead. You got away with it. Now all that's left is God. It's like, man. Oh, but he had some good cowardly moments too. Making that phone call to Hoffa's wife. God.
It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. He's gonna be... If you need anything, I'm here for you.
And there were moments like that in Killers of the Flower Moon, but I didn't... My reaction to the phone call in The Irishman was like, oh, fuck. Oh, you motherfucker. And then my reaction to similar moments with Ernest in Killers of the Flower Moon was, you fucking dumbass. Like,
it ain't my fault that you got caught with the car, you dumbbell.
Call me a goddamn partner. You didn't give me shit.
Let me tell you something. Hale's got a whole plan, and I'm gonna talk to him and make sure you ain't a part of it, because you're so thick in the head.
I don't know if Scorsese meant to do this, but when Brendan Fraser is introduced, I mean, I forgot he was in it, but when he was introduced, it's like this sudden push-in, and it's almost like, presenting Brendan Fraser.
I demand to confer privately with Mr. Burkhart.
And it was this celebratory, my client, I haven't spoken with my client in 2 months.
And I have not had a chance to communicate with him before he testified.
It zooms in, and I had this little, it got excited when I saw it. I was like, yeah, Brendan Fraser. The only thing that I've seen floating around is people's reaction, especially actual members of the Osage tribe, and their reaction to having a white man tell this story, and it's through a white man's eyes, and it's through a white male protagonist, and is that problematic or not, or anything. After watching this movie, I didn't think anything is coming from a white guy, but whatever, take this for what it is. I thought that the Osage people were treated with respect. It wasn't like it wasn't holding your hand in a way to try and ease the white audience into this culture. It was very much like you had to lean forward, you had to pay attention. I'm also not a big proponent of, if you are a white man, you can't tell stories that are not part of your culture. Because I know, like, people, like, for instance, Steven Spielberg directing The Color Purple. Would it have been better, for example, if there was a person of color working on the script or the directing? Would there have been added nuances that Steven Spielberg wouldn't have been able to pick up on, for sure. Like, and I don't even know if it would make a better product. It would just be different, maybe. You know, I guess that's a whole other ball of wax I'm getting into, but I don't know. I don't like the idea that if there's a white screenwriter or white director that they can't touch stories that belong to another minority or race or culture, you know. Well, I feel like I'm getting in the weeds here. So yeah, Killers of the Flower Moon. One way I like to rank a movie in my head, whether or not I really enjoyed it, was if I'm thinking about it for a long time after the fact. It's like if I'm thinking about a movie weeks later, I'm like, that had an effect on me. And yeah, I'm gonna be thinking about this. There's a lot to digest. 3.5 hours. That's a lot to digest. Thanks for anybody who watched this. I'm tired of not making stuff, and I have a little bit of extra time, so I just figured I'd start kind of doing movie reviews, either movies that are current or movies that I love. I like talking about it, so I'm just gonna do this whenever I feel like it. And if you guys like this, let me know. Let me know if there are any movies that you'd like me to talk about. I could go through like my top 10 easily and talk about them for hours, but I don't know how interesting that would be. Might be boring, might not be, I don't know. I'm just this is a little bit of a litmus test. Let's see what you guys like. Anyway, thanks guys.